Hello guys, this is Modest Major here, bringing you some commentary over some Halo 5 gameplay. The gameplay in the background is some BTB footage, and my topic for today is honestly one that I'd rather not be covering. It's a little bit more on the negative side, and I know this can get a little bit tiresome. And I know that negativity is something that's swirling around in the community right now. It's something that I personally find a little bit tiresome, but I think that's mostly due to the fact that people view the negativity in a more black and white situation where they can't just put down the game a little bit, and they can't just come up with a couple of critical elements and then come up with some solutions. They kind of have to straight up gang up on the game and show that it's like the worst game of all time. And I'm a bit of a fanboy when it comes to my enjoyment of the games. I'd honestly rather find something to enjoy and find something to be positive about than focus on the negative. It's never something I've been particularly good at. If I let a little bit of negativity in, sometimes it just swirls around and I can't stop being negative, and I prefer to just stay away from that and be positive. But nonetheless, being a fanboy of Halo 5 has been a little bit difficult, and that's not necessarily, in my opinion, due to the strength of the developers. I actually enjoy the developers, and I actually enjoy the base product of Halo 5, Halo 5 at its core, I should say, and that's why I hope this video doesn't come up from a point of view where it's like, oh, this guy's got his own hidden intentions, this guy's trying to find a way to derail the game, to derail the hype train, because people do definitely sometimes attack it from that angle, or there's some sort of self-interest, or it can definitely seem that way because it's so one-sidedly negative. But for me personally, I like the developers 343. I like what they can bring to the table in gameplay mechanics. I'm not a believer in the fact of like thruster packs, ruining the Halo 5 experience, or Sprint ruining the Halo 5 experience. I think they put a lot of time and a lot of good intentions into the way in which they balance the multiplayer, and I think a lot of that does come, to be fair, from the pro team working so closely with the game, and I think you can feel their influence at times, and I really like that, and I do think it's solid mechanics. However, I do feel that there is a disconnect between us as consumers of the game and the developers of the game post-launch. I think there's been this massive gap between what we want as fans of the game and what 343 are willing to give us. And personally, the gap feels more severe to me than it did in Halo 4. Now, bearing in mind, I did come into Halo 4 a little bit late. Around the time of Champions Bundle is when I started really getting heavily invested in Halo 4, and I feel like around that time the developers were getting more invested. I know at launch of Halo 4, a lot of people felt like they were kind of left dead in the water, so maybe we'll see a similar situation here where we wait for some patch, or for some expansion, or for some big revolutionary like playlist launch that will get people excited and get people hyped. We had the turbo update in Halo 4, but we all saw how that went in terms of exposure and in terms of how quickly it circulated. It was all a little bit too late, and not as many people enjoyed that experience as I would have liked to see. I felt like if the game had launched with turbo update and had launched with playlists like Ricochet, that the game might have been received at least a little bit more favorably, at least more comparable to Reach, instead of the way in which the people pooed on Halo 4 and were like, dude, this game sucks, this game blows, people have a really negative experience. And I feel like they might be returning to that formula, which is a proven formula to not work. I want to give some examples so this just doesn't seem like random hearsay, because I've compiled a couple of the reasons why I've been frustrated and why I feel that we haven't been there isn't a dialogue going on between us as players and 343 as developers. And I'm going to start off with the current playlist lineup, and I'll show up on screen briefly what we're working with right now, and it includes Slayer, Team Arena, Breakout, FFA, SWAT, and Big Team Battle. Now, the first thing I want to say is that these playlists in some way or another either include Slayer or they're some sort of spin-off of Slayer. SWAT is basically you're trying to kill the enemy team. Breakout, you're trying to kill the enemy team. Yes, they have a flag there, but at the same time, if you kill the enemy team, you win the round. And then Team Arena, of course, includes Slayer. And the list goes on. You know, I feel like these are very, very heavily Slayer-orientated playlists, and there's a lot of people that I personally have spoken to that don't enjoy that kind of environment. And Team Arena is probably the furthest away that you're going to get from that lineup, because BTB really heavily features just straight up Slayer. It does feature CTF as well, but I feel like the majority of what you get in that playlist is Slayer. And I'm going to list some of the playlists that they could go for, and this is just a small handful, bear in mind, that are not Slayer-orientated and have been fan favorites of the series. We could be seeing Oddball, we could be seeing Griffball, we could be seeing Capture the Flag, we could be seeing a base King of the Hill playlist, we could be seeing an Infection playlist, we could be seeing a Race playlist. The list does go on, but like, even just one or two of them would signal to me that they're giving the community what they want, and at least close to what we've experienced in previous Halo games. And it's not like I'm the only one complaining about this. This is not like I'm bringing this to light. This has been a problem for quite some time, and quite frankly, 6 playlists is absolutely horrendous. Like, that's all I can say. 6 playlists is an unacceptable number of playlists. I know some people have said, oh yeah, but we don't want to split the population numbers too far, and we don't want too many playlists. I understand that, but 6 playlists that are all fairly close to one another, you know, it's not like you're getting a huge amount of variety. If they really put a strong amount of effort and a strong amount of concentration in saying, you know, we're gonna do 6 playlists, but bear in mind that there's going to be a huge amount of variety and disparity between the playlists. That's just not the case. These playlists are all fairly similar, they're all fairly cookie cutter, and I'd say they're all pretty uninventive, or at least they don't give it enough of a like experience that you would come to expect from a Halo game in terms of variety, and I think that's a shame. The next point I want to go into is BTB consisting only of Forge maps. I feel like if you're gonna do a BTB with Forge maps, and you're not going to have any like base maps that are in BTB to begin with, I think at the very least you should be doing a huge amount of Forge maps. You know, this Forge is expansive. This Forge has what I would consider almost unlimited potential, and they're not even beginning, in my opinion, to capitalize on the sheer benefits. I don't know if you guys have seen the Sandtrap remake circulating around our Halo right now. I don't know if you guys have seen the Avalanche remake, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are plenty more maps, and people need to start getting credit. This is what I'm talking about with dialogue between 343 and us, you know. Where are the people getting credit for putting this effort in, for trying to populate our Halo? You know, people are even putting in effort. People are going to the effort, pretty much shouting out to, like, you know, into a vacuum of space and saying, here's this great map that I've made that hardly anyone is going to play because the file sharing options are limited, and because no one's going to pick them up and put them into matchmaking anytime soon anyway. And, you know, maybe they are working on this. Maybe for all I know, there's some secret, you know, Arena 51 plan that's going on behind closed doors to get all this exposure. But the fact of the matter is they're not giving us enough communication, and we are none the wiser to this. And the longer we're none the wiser, the more we're going to be in a problematic situation. And if you look at some of the popular games like CSGO, like Dota 2, like let's, for example, think about that issue that happened with that pistol not too long ago in CSGO. Basically, if you guys didn't know, some pistol came out. I can't quite remember the name of it, but it was like this magnum that could absolutely destroy people, absolutely rip faces off. I think less than a week later, you know, people complained about it, people went crazy, and they pretty much instantaneously fixed it and said, sorry about that, whoops, that was our bad, we let that get out of hand. You know, the fact that it went on for like 2 or 3 days, I think it was like kind of an outrage in that community. And here we are, you know, I can look to maps like Antifreeze and maps like Overgrowth. There are exploits to get out of those maps. If you play team doubles and someone gets a lead, they can potentially just glitch out of the map, they can hide, and they can win the rest of the match. Where's that getting fixed? You know, if there's outrage about that on our Halo, do you know who listens? Do you know who fixes that problem? No one. And you could say, oh, maybe, you know, maybe it's just because there's hardly anyone playing. I hate this attitude of like, oh, you know, we're only going to help you if there's a lot of people to help. We're not going to help the small little dedicated handful of people who have stuck with us despite so many people leaving. You know, these people are like trying to make it work, trying to play Halo 5, and I feel like I'm being left in the dark for that. I feel like I'm almost, you know, being treated as stupid. I feel like 343 are almost silently saying, you should probably just wait till Halo 6 if you're going to care about that sort of thing. You know, if you actually care about being looked after. And once again, you know, I'm not doubting the fact that they might be working on stuff and they might be working on changes to fix this, but they need to make communication with us, because right now the playlist lineup is absurdly bad. Stuff like these map exploits are getting out of hand, and they're just really, like, there's no efforts to fix them anytime soon. As far as we're concerned. Then you've got like stuff like the abuse of the Warzone Armory glitch, where you can essentially like push to the furthest armory and you can cap it when you're not allowed to or when you're not supposed to, and it can really break the flow of the game. You know, stuff like this has just gotten out of hand, and I really want to see it change. Another problem I want to address is the fact that there's so many maps in matchmaking, but half of them are remixes, and then they're not compensating for that with their Forge again. Like I said, you know, we could see maps like, I've seen maps like Guardian remixes, I've seen the Cage remix. The Cage remix is amazing, for the record. I absolutely love the Cage. It's probably the only map I really, really like from Halo Reach. And people are just working on content, and there's no recognition, no outreach from 343 to say, hey, we're gonna work on implementing this. They implemented a pretty small handful of maps, if you were to ask me, and some of them didn't feel like they were tested that much to like see like what the potential approval might be. You know, if you're going to put that small an amount of maps into the matchmaking, they better be good maps. And the unfortunate situation is, I feel like a lot of these maps weren't that well tested. You know, if you look at some of the BTB maps, a lot of them have really, really tight and narrow hallways. Basin comes to mind for me. I feel like you can camp those hallways, and I feel like the gameplay can get really defensive. The map that's the remake of Longbow as well from Halo 4 can get pretty darn defensive, and I've seen a lot of people complaining about that. They did put in a small change where they swapped out the tank for a Gauss Warthog, but to me that wasn't even the most severe problem. I feel like that whole area in top middle, there's just too many choke points. The shotgun is too lethal, and the gameplay just gets too standoffish. In spite of all this, as I mentioned earlier, I do wanna head off this video by saying that although I'm being particularly critical of aspects, I do think I'm being fairly critical, but nonetheless, you know, I don't want to be critical without solutions, and I'm not saying there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. Like I've said many times in many of my Halo 5 videos, they've done one of the harder aspects in crafting a Halo game, which is getting the base mechanics to a suitable degree. I know some people find a lot of the mechanics a little bit tiresome, and maybe they're cropping up in too many games, like stuff like elements like the Thruster Pack. But bear in mind that Halo 4 was the first to do the Thruster Pack, and I don't think any other company crafts it alongside the maps quite as well as 343 do. I do think they do a pretty tremendous job of really testing the maps and going into great efforts to make sure that they work in synchronization and in conjunction with the different flanking routes and map elements. That's just my opinion, you know, that is biased, but whatever. So they did that, but at the same time, you know, I want them to put out an update and not go quiet for an entire month and ignore any potential problems that may crop up, and have an ongoing dialogue with the community that are there. Like I said, you know, I'm someone who likes to fanboy, and I don't want to feel guilty for being a fanboy. I don't want to feel like I need to be the sort of player that can only come back every week, or otherwise I'm going to feel like an idiot because they haven't delivered content that can last longer than a week, that can go past its, like, it has a really short expiration date. You know, I want to kind of dig into the game, and I want to claw into the game, and I want to have the feeling that, like, you know, at least someone on 343 is kind of doing the same thing, where they're constantly monitoring the game, they're monitoring the community, and they're trying to come up with solutions. And this might seem like I'm demanding a lot, but as I mentioned previously, a lot of the bigger games are doing this. Games like LoL, CSGO, Dota 2, they are monitoring their community, and they are making sure that it's thriving and making sure that they fix any problems as quick as they can. Even a game like Smash 4 for the Nintendo Wii U, you know, Nintendo Wii U isn't the best performing console out there at the moment, but they still managed to maintain a constant pulse within that community and supply content for it. Another good example would be Splatoon. Lord knows what the Splatoon populations are like. I haven't actually played that game, but I can't imagine they're that fantastic, yet I manage to see on Twitter every so often these new patches, these new content updates, and I would just like to see that. I would like to see the active consumer rewarded in the long term. There's too much concentration on short-term game instead of long-term overall loyalty and brand investment. I start to feel as a consumer that they don't care about my long-term consumer, and I'm sure that's not true. Like, I'm sure they wouldn't, pour in the passion and the effort into the base game that they have if they didn't care about what the consumer's for. But there must be something going on, this is my opinion anyway, with Microsoft and Free for Free that disables them from being able to keep constant finger on the trigger and update the game as consistently as maybe they would like. Maybe they're being forced into already working on Halo 6 or already working on side projects. I'm not sure what it is, but something isn't working there, and they need to figure that out, because otherwise they're going to let Halo 5 go dead in the water, and I think that would be a bit of a shame, to be honest. I hope this video wasn't too negative, and I hope it wasn't too long for you guys. It's sort of like a mini podcast almost, but let me know in the comment sections what you think of Halo 5's current standings, if you disagree with some of the stuff that I said, or if you have some stuff that you would add to my list of things that you want them to fix that make you feel like there is miscommunication going on. Anyway, I've been Modest Major. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Peace out.